Chen Mu accidentally traveled back to ancient times and casually wrote a diary. Unexpectedly, as time passed, it was dug up from underground by Emperor Shi. I thought Velociraptor could run fast and its meat must be delicious. Therefore, I specifically hunted 3 of them, but they didn't taste good and I lost them. Emperor Shi. Is this a fairy? Eating dragons. Lishan. That's dragon meat. Unexpectedly discarded by the immortal at will I have climbed mountains and fallen into valleys, both of which have benefited me greatly. Emperor Shi. Can both heaven and earth have insights here? It must be a miracle, let me investigate. Today, the sky was clear and refreshing, and I was bored. I decided to teach the little dragons how to practice Tai Chi. Maybe they could live longer and even better at martial arts. Emperor Shi. Immortal art, it must be immortal art, and Tai Chi must be the law of immortality. Occasionally one day, Emperor Ingzheng found the place where the heavenly man Chen Mu had once set foot. As the deeds of heaven and humanity slowly surfaced, the entire Great Qin was shaken by it. Keywords of the novel. In the mausoleum of the first emperor, my immortal diary was discovered without a pop-up window. In the mausoleum of the first emperor, my immortal diary was discovered. Download the complete text. In the mausoleum of the first emperor, my immortal diary was discovered. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. 800 Miles Urgent. Lishan is amazed to see the Book of Heaven, Man, and Immortals. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. 800 Miles Urgent. Lishan is amazed to see the Book of Heaven, Man, and Immortals. In front of Zhongtai Palace. The coiled dragon stone pillars stand tall, with deep mountains built on wood as the foundation. Since the end of the Six Kingdoms period, the 4 seas are one, and the fortune of the Chinese people has returned to the Great Qin dynasty. The first emperor, Ingzheng, was dressed in a divine bird robe and wore a 12-white jade bead crown on his head. With his hands on his back and majestic eyes, he scanned this unified world. The anxious sun slowly rose, and under the setting sun, the vast palace was dyed golden. It seems to be reflecting that the prosperous era of the Chinese nation is about to begin. A few strands of fresh breeze blew by, and the white jade flowing crown hanging in front of the first emperor's forehead shook slightly. The black dragon robe was also splashed with a hint of ripples by the clear wind. Along with the first emperor's mind, it slowly fell into memories. He succeeded the throne of King Qin at the age of weak crown. By thunderous means, clear the court and reclaim the royal power. Afterwards, with the savings of the 6th generation of the Great Qin dynasty, the 6 harmonies were swept and the entire world was unified. Books share the same text, cars share the same track, making the entire Chinese nation completely integrated into one country. Such great achievements are comparable to those of the 3 emperors and 5 emperors of ancient times. Therefore, at the suggestion of Prime Minister Lishan of the Great Qin dynasty, Ingzheng also completely changed the title of emperor to emperor. Thinking about the past, the sharp light in the eyes of Emperor Shi became increasingly bright. Like a sharp sword, piercing through the sun hanging above the Zhangming sky. Under Zhongtai Palace, there are numerous civil and military officials. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Lishan, they all knelt respectfully towards the highest emperor of the Great Qin dynasty. Whispering loudly, "My emperor, with great achievements, will cover the ages." Its sound is as loud as an invisible wave, sweeping over the entire Zhongtai Palace. Even the 1,000-year-old tree in front of the hall was shaken by the sound, causing its leaves to tremble. Listening to the praises of civil and military officials, the expression on Emperor Shi's face remained unchanged, still a silent expression. But its gaze was like a slightly undulating deep pool, splashing with ripples. Emperor Shi looked at the vast mountains and rivers and murmured. The achievements of a few people will cover the ages. But how can we achieve 1,000 years' worth of life for a widow? Although achieving great achievements that can forever be recorded in history, it has also reached the peak of the power of the Chinese people. But after so many years of warfare, when he looked back, Emperor Shi realized that his body was not as good as before. Even though there are countless grooves in my chest, how can I fully utilize my life's short time? When the establishment of the Chinese Empire was completed, the first emperor was certainly in a state of excitement. Under the seemingly strong and sturdy appearance of the empire, there are many hidden dangers. Whether it was the remaining sins of the six kingdoms or those with different thoughts among the various schools of thought, they all made the first emperor somewhat uneasy. If he were in this world, he had the confidence to prevent many young people from acting recklessly. But once his lifespan reaches its end, I'm afraid that the newly established empire of Qin will be surrounded by wolves and have the power to overthrow. The world that has just been pacified is likely to fall into chaos again. The people of the world will once again live a precarious life. Therefore, after unifying the world, the first emperor became increasingly eager for the legendary immortality. People all say that there are immortals in the world, and only those who meet the fate of immortals can achieve immortality. But where exactly is this immortal? Emperor Shi scanned the world today, his majestic face flashing with a hint of the most intuitive desire for immortality. Lishan. The site where the mausoleum of the first emperor was built. Tens of thousands of young and strong men built here. The grandeur of the momentum is unprecedented. For these critical project matters, Emperor Shi also dispatched the most trusted Zhang Han to supervise the work here. The entire construction project of the imperial tomb was proceeding in an orderly manner. Suddenly, a commoner was digging a hard rock when he directly smashed out a hole. Immediately after, several local men around knocked and struck on the edge of the cave entrance. A huge entrance to the underground palace is revealed on Mount Li. A history shrouded in dust, from the moment the stubborn stone was shattered, suddenly appeared in the world. After learning about this, Zhang Han immediately led the secret guard to explore the underground palace. During this period, all the discoveries only brought an unprecedented impact to Zhang Han's heart and mind. What surprised Zhang Han even more was that he discovered a book about heaven, man, and immortality in the imperial palace. The books of the great Qin dynasty were all made of bamboo slips or brocade cloth. But the Heavenly Man Immortal book that Zhang Han received was made of unknown materials. Under Zhang Han's light touch, he felt that the material of this book was as thin as cicada wings and as tough as cowhide. After receiving the Book of Heaven, Man, and Immortals, Zhang Han's emotions were of great significance. Immediately, the entire Lishan mountain was directly sealed off, prohibiting all the people involved in the construction of the imperial tomb from leaving. Let the Shadow Secret Guard guard the entrance of the heavenly and earthly palace and send elite personnel to continue exploring in the heavenly and earthly Emperor Palace. Zhang Han himself, on the other hand, hurried back to court with the Heavenly Man and Immortal Book, leading dozens of light cavalry. Xianyang. Outside the palace, a fast horse galloped like lightning. Behind it is a black flag. Urgent message from 800 miles away. The people who saw this flag quickly made way left and right. Under the fast horse shuttle, straight into the Zhangtai Palace. The first emperor, who was originally contemplating the path of immortality, suddenly heard an urgent report outside the Zhangtai Palace shouting. Report. At the imperial mausoleum of Mount Li, we have discovered the heavenly and earthly palace. In the underground palace, there is a suspected copy of the Heavenly Man Immortal Book. This urgent report is issued. The civil and military affairs of the Manchu dynasty are all filled with startling sounds. Under the mutual gaze of the ministers, their faces were filled with a look of shock. Heaven, Man, Earth Palace. Surprisingly, a heavenly and earthly palace has appeared in the land of Mount Li. What's even more incredible is that there were immortal books left by heaven and humanity in the underground palace that day. Is this Tianyu Daqin? While the civil and military officials were shocked, a joyful expression couldn't help but appear on their faces. The first emperor on the Dragon Terrace was even more excited. Under the bright eyes, full of surprises. Xianyuan. Just now, Xian Yuan, who was still pondering hard, was actually in the cemetery he had chosen for himself. Lishan, according to estimates from the Great Qin dynasty, was originally a place where the spiritual veins of Shenzhou converge. Therefore, after unifying the country, Emperor Shi chose Mount Li as his burial ground. What Emperor Shi did not expect was that the place where the spiritual veins of the divine realm converged was actually buried with an unknown number of years of history, known as the Heaven, Man, and Earth Palace. And in that underground palace, there are even immortal books of heaven and humanity left. If the immortal book left behind the method of immortality for heaven and humanity, then the chosen place for burying bones will never be used again. Thinking of this, Emperor Shi's eyes became even brighter. Facing the civil and military officials under the dragon platform with dignity, he shook his voice and said, "Go to court. Welcome the Book of Heaven, Man, and Immortals." At this moment, the first emperor had an unprecedented sense of anticipation for the heavenly and immortal book that Zhang Han had brought back to Xianyang. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. In the underground palace, there must be a method of immortality. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. In the underground palace, there must be a method of immortality. Above the court. The first emperor sat upright in the dragon chair. Its body is as stable as a copper bell, displaying the majesty of an emperor, but judging from the flickering eyes of the first emperor. At this moment, Emperor Ing Zheng's heart is extremely unstable. And the civil and military officials below also blushed with excitement. Although standing in rows, their slightly trembling bodies clearly showed how excited they were. Amidst the anticipation of the crowd, Zhang Han's figure appeared at the entrance of the court hall. With both hands holding an object wrapped in brocade, he slowly walked towards the center. The eyes of civil and military officials were all fixed on the object wrapped in brocade in Zhang Han's hand. I was speculating in my heart whether this was the celestial, human, and immortal book that the urgent report had previously mentioned. As the officials behind him walked over, they even raised their toes and stared intently at the object in Zhang Han's hand. This scene fully demonstrates how profound the faith in heaven and humanity is in this world. As Zhang Han's figure drew closer and closer, the longing emotion on the face of the first emperor became more and more evident. The gaze that fell on the object wrapped in brocade also became brighter and brighter. After arriving at the foot of Long Tai, Zhang Han quickly knelt down on one knee and respectfully said, "Your Majesty, I have discovered a copy of the immortal book left by heaven and earth in the heavenly and earthly palace of Mount Li. Hereby presented to your Majesty." After speaking, Zhang Han lifted the heavenly and immortal book in his hands above his head. Immediately, an attendant next to Emperor Shi took the heavenly and immortal book wrapped in brocade and respectfully brought it to Emperor Shi. Looking at the celestial and immortal books wrapped in brocade cloth in front of him, Emperor Shi felt a wave of excitement all over his body. Even the right hand caressing Jinbu felt a faint tremble. Gently uncovering the brocade, I saw 4 powerful characters engraved on the celestial, human, and immortal book that appeared before me. Chen Mu's transcript. Seeing these 4 words, Emperor Shi's heart was once again filled with excitement. From the alternating strokes of dragons and snakes alone, one can see the sharpness of heaven and humanity. From these 4 words, Emperor Shi saw a sense of inclusiveness. The anticipation for this celestial book in my heart instantly increased by 3 points. The first emperor carefully chewed on the meaning of these 4 words. I suddenly realized that the name of that celestial being must be Chen Mu. This immortal book is a personal record left by a celestial being named Chen Mu. So, among them, what kind of divine method is hidden behind it? In an instant, the first emperor's eyes lit up brightly. However, the first emperor was still the first emperor and did not rush to read the book of heaven, man, and immortals in the first place. But with great perseverance, he moved his gaze away from the book of heaven, man, and immortals and landed on Zhang Han. The first emperor praised with joy on his face. "Zhang Han, you truly deserve to be my humorous. You did a good job with this matter. Later, I will greatly reward you. Upon hearing the words of Emperor Shi, Zhang Han quickly paid homage and said, I dare not make any contribution. This heavenly and earthly palace is now located in the imperial mausoleum of Mount Li. It is the will of heaven, it is the heavenly beings in the underworld, and they are also using the heavenly and earthly palaces to pass on the teachings to our emperor. Upon hearing Zhang Han's words, Emperor Shi was greatly benefited. The smile on his face became increasingly intense. Then he turned to Zhang Han below and said, Zhang Qing, what was the situation in the underground palace that day? Is there any record of heaven and humanity? The words of Emperor Shi fell behind. Zhang Han immediately recalled the various scenery he had seen in the heavenly and earthly palace, and the shock in his heart could only be felt on his face. Respecting the first emperor. Your Majesty, that day the underground palace was located under a rock. But it's like emptying the entire Li mountain. That underground palace is no less massive than our Xianyang imperial palace. Zhang Han just finished his sentence. Hiss. Amidst the ranks of civil and military officials, there was a sudden gasping sound. Everyone was shocked by the scene that Zhang Han said. In my mind, I was thinking about what a magnificent atmosphere would be like for an underground palace built by hollowing out Mount Li. Whenever one thinks of such a massive palace, it turns out to be built underground. All civil and military officials are like thunder exploding in their minds. That shocking emotion cannot be described in words. Even the first emperor, upon hearing of the grandeur of the underground palace, was momentarily lost in thought. From the grand scale of the human emperor palace on this day, one can fully see the divine abilities of that person. The magnificent building can only be built by emptying the mountain. It's simply not something that human labor can accomplish. After marveling at the vastness of the heavenly and earthly palace, Emperor Shi urged Zhang Han with his eyes to continue describing it. Zhang Hanxian followed what he had seen and heard in his mind in the heavenly and earthly palace and described to everyone. Due to the vast size of the heavenly and earthly palaces, we will not be able to explore and excavate them in detail in the future. But around the underground palace, there are countless murals. On that mural, there seems to be a carving of the era when heaven and humanity lived. The plants and trees there seem to be much taller than they are today. What's even more terrifying is that there are countless giant beasts shuttling through that tall forest. Finally, using the small mountain in the mural as a reference, it was discovered that any animal is as tall as a small mountain. And some giant beasts, from a morphological perspective, are like ferocious beasts in mythology. Just looking at the carved shape gives the end a sense of fear. Zhang Han finished speaking these words. All the civil and military officials were so frightened that they couldn't speak. They couldn't imagine what kind of fear a giant beast the size of a small mountain would cause when it moved. Especially, its shape resembles that of a mythical beast. Is the era of the existence of heaven and humanity truly a mythological period in legend? Otherwise, how could a giant beast like a small mountain appear? Just as everyone was shocked by the content of the murals mentioned by Zhang Han. Among all the civil and military officials, Su Fu is the fastest to come to his senses. At this moment, Su Fu, with a face full of excitement, stood out and respectfully said to the first emperor. Your Majesty, since heaven and earth have such great power, they have built such a miraculous heavenly and earthly palace. There is a high possibility that there is a method of immortality in the books of immortality left behind by him. Su Fu was the first alchemist of the great Qin dynasty and was ordered by the first emperor to search for the method of immortality. At this moment, the heavenly and earthly palaces are present in the world, and Su Fu only feels that immortal fate has descended. In the immortal books left by the heavenly and earthly, there must be records of great supernatural powers. Upon hearing Su Fu's words, the palpitating heart of Emperor Shi couldn't be contained. Facing the faces of civil and military officials, I gently opened the first page of the Book of Heaven, Man, and Immortals, end of this chapter. Chapter 3. Heaven and Man are riding dragons. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Heaven and Man are riding dragons. Emperor Shi just touched the Book of Human Beings and Immortals on this day. I just feel that the materials used in the Immortal Book on this day are as delicate as virgin skin. The thickness is as thin as cicada wings, and there is a tough feeling like animal skin. I couldn't help but sigh inwardly, truly worthy of being left by heaven and humanity. Turning to the first page and looking at the vast expanse of handwriting on it, Emperor Shi couldn't help but recite. This is my 100th day in the Jurassic period, and I have finally adapted to it. Emperor Shi has just finished reading this sentence. The civil and military officials under the dragon platform all showed a puzzled expression on their faces. Through the first sentence of the Book of Heaven, Man, and Immortals, everyone roughly understood that the era in which heaven and man existed was the Jurassic period. But the problem is, they have never heard of the Jurassic period. The term Jurassic can be considered as directly hitting the blind spot of their knowledge. These knowledgeable officials immediately pondered over which era of human history the Jurassic period was. However, no matter how much they rack their brains, they still haven't found any records of the Jurassic period in their lifetime studies. The first emperor also raised his head, revealing a pair of puzzled eyes. Looking at the current Prime Minister Lishan, he spoke up. Lishan, you are compatible with hundreds of schools. Can you tell me which era this Jurassic period is? How come I have never heard of a description of the Jurassic in human records? Lishan, who was questioned by the first emperor. At this moment, there was also a furrowed brow, and even Lishan had heard the term Jurassic for the first time. When Emperor Shi asked, Lishan had to answer again. Faced with everyone's gaze, Lishan gritted his head and explained. Your Majesty, this Jurassic period is probably the era in which humans and heaven lived. In the era of heaven and humanity, since there were giant beasts surviving, it is very likely to be even older than the era of the three emperors. Perhaps it's the legendary ancient times. It is also possible that the Jurassic period, as referred to by heaven and man, is another way of recording that is independent of the current method of chronological division. After speaking these words, Lishan's forehead was already sweating faintly. Surprised to be asked about the knowledge gap by Emperor Shi, Lishan couldn't help but feel a bit flustered and could only explain it this way. Upon hearing this, Emperor Shi nodded slowly. With doubts in his heart, he continued to read the Immortal Book. In this era, although the natural environment is excellent, it ultimately gives me a sense of loneliness. In order to dispel the loneliness in my heart, I have recently developed a hobby that is extremely beneficial to my physical and mental health. Keeping pets. The first thing that caught my eye was the tallest liang long. After reaching adulthood, this type of dragon is 15 zhang long, and its high and raised neck is perfect for stepping on his head to see the scenery. Well, it's a mobile viewing platform. The most important thing is that this liang long has a gentle temperament. I just used a little physics to tame the dragon and directly tamed the liang long leader. The leader of the liang long, whose body was even exaggerated to 20 zhang long. His weight, upon inspection, was also around 40,000 pounds. More importantly, after taming the leader of the liang long, all of his little brothers became my pets. Every time I stroll in the primitive forest, I am followed by more than 10 liang long dragons with a body length of more than 15 zhang, which is like a moving earthquake. However, just having liang long as a mount seems a bit insufficient. Although these dragons are huge, they are not fierce enough. When they meet a large carnivore dragon, they always feel panic. If I were not in charge, these dozen dragons would have run away. It seems that we still need to find some more ferocious carnivorous dinosaurs. It seems that Tyrannosaurus rex is not bad. It can be considered the largest carnivorous dinosaur of this era, and its next mount is it. Seeing this, Emperor Shi couldn't suppress his inner shock. The gaze moved away from the books of heaven, humanity, and immortality. Because Emperor Shi read the content of the Book of Heaven, Man, and Immortals while reading it. Even the entire hall was filled with civil and martial arts, and descriptions from the Book of Heaven, Man, and Immortals were heard. At this moment, the entire court was plunged into a silence where needles could be heard falling. The first emperor and all the civil and military officials were both shocked and inexplicable by the content spoken in the Book of Heaven, Man, and Immortals. Even Li Si's eyes were wide open and his face was pale at the moment. Even the most brave and skilled Meng Tian is now stunned to the point where he can't bear to fight. Su Fu exclaimed with a passionate expression on his face. Dragon. Surprisingly, humans treat dragons as pets and mounts. Oh my goodness. Every time the heavens and humans go on a tour, there are dozens of 15 Zhang-long divine dragons standing by their sides. What a magnificent miracle this is. At this moment, Su Fu could no longer imagine that dozens of divine dragons were patrolling with the heavens and humans. What kind of Xiandao weather will it be? Everyone above the court is like this. They don't know that the dinosaurs described by humans are not at the same level as the mythical dragons they imagine. I only know that both of them carry the word dragon, and subconsciously, I think that the dinosaurs subdued by heaven and humanity are the divine dragon totems they worship. Unconsciously, in my mind, I outlined the majestic atmosphere of the person stepping high on the top of the dragon's head and patrolling that day. Has the scene of covering the sky and sun, which can cause the earth dragon to turn over, really happened on this land before? After Su Fu finished speaking, Meng Tian also unconsciously said. This Liang Long, which is 20 zhang long, seems to be despised by heaven and humans for not being brave enough to fight well. What a fierce and terrifying dragon is the Tyrannosaurus Rex that the heavens and humans are about to subdue. This dragon, named after the word Overlord, must be exceptionally brave and powerful, with unparalleled combat power. Upon hearing Meng Tian's words, the first emperor suddenly felt a sense of curiosity in his heart, and quickly focused his mind on the Book of Heaven, Man, and Immortals. Tyrannosaurus Rex's temperament is much more ferocious than that of Liang Long. When I came to subdue them, I even opened up my bloody mouth. Good guy, truly the largest carnivorous dinosaur of this era. This big mouth full of teeth is a foot wide open. But with one punch, this Tyrannosaurus Rex is actually honest. I knocked out 10 Tyrannosaurus Rex in a row, and now I have one more breed in my pet lineup. The body size of Tyrannosaurus Rex, although not as huge as that of Diplodocus, is solid enough to be even harder than a stone. Especially with this one zhang thick head, it is full of violent aesthetics. Seeing this, Emperor Shi was once again shocked in his heart. In my mind, I outline a dragon head measuring 1 zhang in size, with its mouth full of sharp teeth. In addition, with a body even harder than a stubborn stone, whenever he thought of that scene, a chill surged from the bottom of Emperor Shi's heart. Especially, seeing such a terrifying Tyrannosaurus Rex, it turns out that it is not a 1.1 enemy of heaven and humanity. The first emperor's admiration for heaven and humanity became even stronger. Hurry up and turn to the back page of the Book of Heaven, Man, and Immortals, end of this chapter. Chapter 4. Heaven and Man. It may exist here. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Heaven and Man. It may exist here. At this moment, above the court, the civil and military officials of the great Qin dynasty were like children receiving enlightenment, eagerly looking at the first emperor on the dragon chair. Listen carefully to the first emperor and recite the records in the Book of Heaven, Man, and Immortals. Tyrannosaurus Rex, as a pet, is much more troublesome than Diplodocus. Liang Long only needs to consume plants to grow tall and towering, but this Tyrannosaurus Rex is not suitable. Looking at the 10 tame Tyrannosaurus Rex, I suddenly thought to myself, why not train them to hunt in groups? A Tyrannosaurus Rex, although almost invincible to a single person, is more and more clever than this Jurassic dinosaur. Whenever you encounter a threat, just run away. The efficiency of the pursuit of a Tyrannosaurus rex with a big head is really not very good. Under my Iron Fist education, these tyrannosaurs, who were born to hunt alone, were forcibly taught by me to engage in group warfare. TSK, the scene of 10 Tyrannosaurus rex cooperating to prey on each other is simply cruel. Even if encountering a group of triangular dragons, one can directly confront them head-on. Dozens of triangular dragons charged together, even a small mountain was enough to level off. Faced with the intimidation of 10 Tyrannosaurus rex roaring together, the Triceratops immediately fell into chaos. After a hunt, the blood flowing from the Triceratops group directly dyed the small river on the edge red. Hey, with a group of Tyrannosaurus rex as pets, I finally have enough power to travel. When you want to see the scenery, jump onto Liang Long's long neck. However, when I saw the pterosaur flying high in the sky, I suddenly felt like I was missing a flying pet. The pterosaur that can carry humans for flight is not so easy to choose from. I threw baskets of fruits into the sky in a row, and among the dozens of pterosaurs that were knocked unconscious, I chose the one that looked the most majestic. Another slap woke up the most majestic pterosaur. I stepped on its back, trying to make it fly with a human. Hiss, the process of pterosaur manned flight is complex. In short, under the deterrence of my Iron Fist, this most majestic pterosaur has finally learned how to honestly act as a flying mount. Done. At this point, I have added a pterosaur that can soar for 9 days to my pet collection list. Seeing this, Emperor Shi's heart was filled with envy. He didn't expect that the means of heaven and man would be so advanced. Can drive 10 tyrannosaurs to slaughter another type of dragon species. Although the Immortal book did not provide a detailed description of that great war. But with just a little imagination, the first emperor could think of such a scene, which must be like the earth stained with blood and Sangming shedding tears. The great war between the ancient dragons. Surprisingly, it was created by manipulating the interests of heaven and humanity. Especially when it comes to the idea of humans being able to drive those 10 Tyrannosaurus rex at will, the first emperor doesn't know how envious it is. Nowadays, there are as many as 1,000,000 iron cavalry in the Great Qin Empire. If there are 10 more Tyrannosaurus rex among them, the territory of the Great Qin Empire may be able to expand more than twice as much. With 10 Tyrannosaurus rex as the vanguard, the barbarians in the north can also be destroyed by covering their hands. That Qin dynasty no longer has to work hard and waste money just to build the Great Wall and the pterosaur that can carry humans and soar for 9 days. Although the heavens and humans did not provide a specific description of their appearance. But according to the character, Wing, in front of the dragon, the first emperor has automatically imagined a divine dragon with wings on its back. That image is completely like the mythological Yinglong. Heavenly beings can not only drive the terrifying Tyrannosaurus rex, but also easily knock out the mythical Yinglong with fruit. These methods of communication have exceeded the limit that Emperor Shi could imagine at this moment. After feeling a sigh in his heart, Emperor Shi also understood. Only through the means of heaven and man can 10 terrifying Tyrannosaurus rex be subdued and driven by them. Even though he is the only emperor in China, he is still a mortal body. Such things can only be imagined. After sighing, Emperor Shi focused his mind on the Book of Heaven, Man, and Immortals. However, only the last sentence remains on this page. The first emperor slowly read this sentence from the Immortal book. I have climbed mountains and fallen into valleys, both of which have benefited me a lot. As soon as he finished reading, Emperor Shi frowned. He couldn't figure out why heaven and man left such a sentence at the end of this page. At the beginning of reading this sentence, it may seem simple, but it feels full of profound meaning. Emperor Shi savored it carefully for a while, but still couldn't grasp the true meaning behind it. He lifted his head and scanned the courtiers below the stage with his gaze. Opening the mouth. Gentlemen, what is the interpretation of this last phrase that heaven and earth have recorded? Upon hearing these words, all the officials frowned and fell into contemplation. The fastest person to regain consciousness is the current Prime Minister Li Si. Li Si raised his face slightly and glanced at the officials who were still pondering. He then respectfully said to the first emperor, "Your Majesty, I have some humble opinions on the phrase, heaven and man. Upon hearing this, Emperor Shi immediately became interested and said, "Oh, Lisi, please speak up quickly." Li Si straightened his waist and explained to everyone. The peaks and valleys both benefit heaven and humanity greatly. In these two places, there must be treasures. The preciousness of this treasure is so great that even the existence of such great beings as heaven and earth has benefited greatly. I'm afraid that as ordinary people, just a little bit of it will be enough to bring blessings to the future. As soon as Li Si's words were spoken, the entire hall of civil and martial arts were in full view. Everyone was speculating in their hearts about what kind of rare treasure even heaven and earth could benefit from. On the face of Emperor Shi, a few strands of longing also arose due to Li Si's words. How could the first emperor not want to obtain treasures that can greatly benefit heaven and humanity? In the majestic eyes of the first emperor, his essence flickered and he quickly spoke up. "Lisi, in your opinion, which two places would this mountain peak and valley be today?" Following the words of Emperor Shi, the civil and military officials in the hall also focused their attention on the Prime Minister Li Si. "I am looking forward to being the leader of the officials of the great Qin dynasty, who can speculate about the two places where rare treasures are hidden." Li Si had also anticipated that Emperor Shi would have this question. Therefore, according to what had just come to mind in my heart, I recounted to Emperor Shi. The greatness of heaven and humanity has transcended the scope we understand. The mountain peak and valley that people talked about that day must be the highest peak and lowest valley in this world. Therefore, I can conclude that the peaks and valleys referred to by heaven and man refer to the Changbai Mountains and the land of Bashu. Li Si finished speaking. The entire hall of civil and martial arts was immediately in an uproar. The highest peak on the land of China is indeed Changbai Mountain. And the lowest valley with the lowest terrain is indeed in the land of Bashu. The first emperor slowly chewed on what Li had said. Gently tapping his index finger on the dragon platform, the more thoughtful he was, the more likely he felt that what Li Si said was. In the next moment, Emperor Shi's eyes lit up and he ordered Meng Tian and Wang Ben on the side of the generals. "Meng Tian and Wang Ben are out. I have ordered you two to investigate Changbai Mountain and the land of Bashu. Thoroughly search through all the land in these two places and be sure to find clues to the precious treasures left by heaven and humanity. This matter is related to our national fortune in the great Qin dynasty. You two must not slack off." The majestic words of Emperor Shi have just fallen. Meng Tian and Wang Ben immediately stood out and knelt down on one knee towards the first emperor, respectfully saying, "Here. The last general will definitely fulfill his mission." Looking at the resolute expressions of Meng Tian and Wang Ben, Emperor Shi nodded slowly. Coincidentally at this moment, an urgent report of 800 miles was transmitted all the way from outside the palace. The same news comes from Mount Li. Report. 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 Your Majesty, a hanging coffin has been found deep in the heavenly emperor's palace. Heaven and man, it is very likely to fall asleep in it. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Heaven and man are coming soon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Heaven and man are coming soon. When this urgent message reaches the court, like a thunderbolt, exploding in the hall, all those who heard this news were shocked out of their wits. The various records in the Book of Heaven, Man, and Immortals just now have made the first emperor and various civil and military officials realize how extraordinary the existence of heaven and man is. The divine dragons worshipped by the world are like pets in the hands of heaven and humanity. The divine powers of heaven and man have far exceeded everyone's imagination. At this moment, there is actually a hanging coffin in the heavenly and earthly palace of Mount Li. Since the heavenly man can leave the immortal book in the heavenly man's underground palace, it is very likely that the heavenly man himself is also sleeping in the heavenly man's underground palace. And this suddenly discovered hanging coffin is highly likely to be filled with sleeping beings. As soon as I think about it, heaven and humanity may come to life. Both the first emperor and the civil and military officials couldn't help but tremble with excitement in their hearts. The first emperor's eyes were as sharp as a sword, and he didn't know if the heavens and humans at this moment still existed in the world. But he knew that whether in the hanging coffin, there were sleeping celestial beings or the remains of celestial beings. For all sentient beings on earth, it is nothing more than a great earthquake. Slowly gasping for breath, Emperor Shi shouted loudly. Set it up. I will personally go to the Heavenly Emperor's palace in Lishan with 100 officials. Congratulations to heaven and earth. With the first emperor's command, the orders were transmitted layer by layer. The honor guard was quickly prepared. 6 tall horses, pulling the ancestral dragon's carriage. Afterwards, following the civil and military officials of the Manchu dynasty, they marched towards Mount Li in a grand manner. The first emperor intended to welcome the present world of heaven and humanity with the most respectful attitude. Regardless of whether it is a sleeping celestial being in that hanging coffin or a relic of a celestial being. It is worthy of Emperor Shi to show this respectful posture. Under the surrounding armor ring, the entire team is protected tightly and tightly. Although the world is now unified. However, in the shadow of the great Qin Empire, there are still many young people trying to cause trouble. If he finds the opportunity, he will definitely show his killing intent to the first emperor like a venomous snake. At this moment, when Emperor Shi left the Xianyang palace, the responsibility of the surrounding guards must be both cautious and cautious. The accompanying civil and military officials were also filled with excitement. Whether you want to see the magnificent and unimaginable heavenly and human emperor palace, or it is possible to directly meet the heavenly and human in person. It's enough to make every strand of flesh and blood in their bodies boil with excitement. The first emperor, who was riding in the Huagai car, was feeling extremely uneasy. Relatively speaking, the first emperor preferred heaven and humanity to sleep in a hanging coffin. In that case, at least it proves that humans have lived from the ancient era called the Jurassic to the present day. These long years are enough to prove that heaven and humanity have mastered the law of immortality. Emperor Shi believed in the magnificent divine powers of heaven and man. As long as one expresses a respectful attitude, as long as the heavens and humans pass some subtle techniques, it is enough for oneself to benefit endlessly. What Emperor Shi feared the most was that there were only the remains of heaven and humanity in the hanging coffin. In that case, the full expectations of the first emperor could only be like flowing water, flowing away in the east. As for the absence of anything in the hanging coffin, it is naturally not among the considerations of the first emperor. Perhaps, subconsciously, Emperor Shi rejected this speculation. When Emperor Shi led 100 officials to Mount Li. On the side of the Yin-Yang family, we have also received some news. At this moment, the headquarters of the Yin-Yang family, Xuanji Pavilion. The contemporary leader of the Yin-Yang family, Tai Shen, is standing on the dim rooftop, overlooking this divine land. Although he is called a god. But it's not a god. But it's a kind of account suspension. It was the highest honor of the highest sacrificial ceremony in the Chu region back then. Under the cover of the golden mask, Tai Shen did not vent any emotions. But from the constantly flickering eyes, it can be seen that the leader of the Yin-Yang family is now in an extremely unstable mood. The Yin-Yang family is an extremely powerful lineage among the 100 schools of thought. The Yin-Yang technique it inherits is also mysterious and unpredictable. At the time when the Heavenly Emperor's palace appeared on Mount Li, the leader of the Yin-Yang family, Tai, also received news. Unlike the great Qin Empire, there was no understanding of heaven and humanity at all. The existence of heaven and humanity has always been the biggest secret of the Yin-Yang family. A secret that is not known to past leaders. Therefore, upon learning that the heavenly and earthly palace was present on Mount Li, Tai was greatly shocked. Looking at the myriad scenery downstairs in front of him, Emperor Donghuang recalled the hidden murals of heaven and humanity in the courtyard of the Yin-Yang family. His Yin-Yang family's secret technique has made all schools of thought in the world wary of it. But how could anyone know that these Yin and Yang secrets, which appear to ordinary people to be enough to communicate with ghosts and gods, are only some subtle methods originating from heaven and humanity? Thinking of the terrifying descriptions recorded in the door about heaven and humanity. Even Tai Yi, a top-notch figure in the world, couldn't help but feel a sense of ants gazing at the starry sky. The saying Zhuangzhou Mengdai is well known to the world. I just thought it was the sage Zhuangzi, who realized great freedom in his dream. But who knows, Zhuangzi Mengdai is actually a dream where heaven and man pass on the path of Zhuangzi. The world has heard of the record of carefree travel. There is a fish in the North Sea, named Kuan. Kuan is so big that it is unknown how many kilometers it can travel. Everyone thought that those thousands of miles of Kuan were just creatures imagined by predecessors. In the secrets left by the Yin-Yang family, it is clearly recorded that the Kuan, which is thousands of miles in size, is a pet cultivated by heaven and humans. Various incredible things in the eyes of the world. However, they all have intricate relationships with heaven and humanity, just as Tai Yi was still having a myriad of thoughts. A seductive figure, with light purple long hair, slowly approached behind Tai Yi. This woman has long hair and a sky blue crystal hairpin placed inside. The prefix has ice blue water droplet-shaped hanging beads, suspended by a blue-purple ribbon with light blue dark patterns. The outer cover is a light blue short robe, decorated with a crescent pattern on the back. Deep blue collar, with a navy blue background and purple blue and deep blue waist closure at the waist. Wearing a navy blue wide-sleeved long skirt and a moon-white cross-necked midi, the long skirt drags to the ground. It is the second master of the Yin-Yang family, the star moon god, below the Tai Yi god. I feel like the stars and moons have arrived. Tai Yi spoke softly. Star and moon gods, master of the Yin-Yang family. Let's go to Mount Li together. Congratulations to heaven and earth. As soon as Tai Yi's words fell, the stars and moon gods were struck by lightning. A pair of purple eyes instantly widened, full of incredible words. Does Tianqianren, like those legendary characters, still exist in the world today? Hear the words of the star moon god. Tai Yi suddenly turned around, and his aura slowly spread out like a abyss-like prison. Under the golden mask, Tai Yi's eyes were as sharp as stars, and he firmly said. Heaven and man. They won't die. That existence, time can no longer leave a mark on its body. The appearance of the heavenly and earthly palace on Mount Li this time is a sign that heaven and man are about to appear in the world. Whether heaven and earth are sleeping in it or not, we should all go. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. The Yin-Yang family is surprisingly the queen of heaven and man. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. The Yin-Yang family is surprisingly the queen of heaven and man. Zulong personally led the officials to Mount Li. Such major events, except for the side of the first emperor, which was guarded by the elite iron cavalry of the great Qin dynasty. When he learned about the hanging coffins in the heavenly and earthly palace, the first emperor even dispatched General Wang Jian to lead the most elite 100 battle armor-piercing soldiers of the great Qin, and took control of the entire Lishan area. Emperor Shi knew very well that if there were indeed celestial beings sleeping in the hanging coffin of the heavenly emperor's palace, as long as we can invite the help of heaven and earth, the entire Qin Empire will undergo earth-shattering changes. However, is it the sleeping celestial being in the hanging coffin, or is it just a relic of the celestial being with a mixture of anxiety and anticipation? Emperor Shi led 100 officials to the site of the imperial tomb in Lishan. As soon as he resisted Mount Li, Wang Jian had already led a team of elite black armored soldiers to greet him at the entrance. The last General Wang Jian. Congratulations to the arrival of our emperor. Wang Jian's resolute face, paired with a plain-looking black armored soldier. Let the newly emerged Emperor Shi nod his head. On the journey of the great Qin dynasty to eliminate the six harmonies, Wang Jian made great efforts. His military skills are also among the top in the vast Qin Empire. Therefore, Emperor Shi sent Wang Jian to lead a large army to blockade the entire Lishan area. Emperor Shi slowly approached Wang Jian, who was kneeling on one knee, and whispered. "Wang Qing, did you find any traces of other forces while you were blocking Mount Li?" The first emperor's eyes flickered slightly. The news of the emergence of the Heaven, Man, and Earth Palace caught the entire Qin dynasty off guard. Who would have thought that, even though it was to build the imperial tomb for the first emperor 100 years later, a heavenly and earthly palace had been excavated? Emperor Shi naturally understood that even if Zhang Han had previously blocked the news. But other forces have also been unable to inquire about the current situation of the heavenly, human, and earthly palaces. This is also the significance of Wang Jian leading his army to blockade this area. It's about using a powerful military force to intimidate all kinds of gangsters. Let them know that the empire may have discovered something, but under fear, they dare not act recklessly. Wang Jian stood up behind him and said with a resounding voice. The last general led the black armored troops to march, and many young people were captured by the power of our empire. How dare they approach half of it? Just. Speaking of which, Wang Jian carefully considered his language and stated. In the human underground palace that day, besides the discovery of the celestial and human coffins, there were also some others. Some murals that will be completely incomprehensible. Wang Jian's words immediately shook the first emperor and the officials. The officials were all curious on their faces, and their minds were filled with thoughts about the mysterious content depicted in the murals that even Wang Jian, the god of the Qin army, couldn't understand. And the first emperor's face burst with a hint of surprise. Can't understand. It's better if you can't understand it. The more you, Wang Jian, can't understand, the more mysterious it becomes to prove what heaven and man have learned. Just as the first emperor intended to lead 100 officials into the heavenly and earthly palace to observe the mysterious murals. Suddenly, a powerful aura approached rapidly in the distance. Like a strong wind, as soon as it appeared, it caught the attention of everyone in the room. Baiguan turned his head to take a look. I saw that Tai, the leader of the Yin-Yang family, came with his master. Although the Yin-Yang family belongs to a branch of Taoism, they are all members of the various schools of thought. But the strength of the Yin-Yang family is strong, and the contemporary leader of the Yin-Yang family, Tai, has been betting on the Qin for a long time. On the road of sweeping the six harmonies in the great Qin dynasty, the Yin-Yang family also exerted their strength both openly and secretly. Therefore, the relationship between the Yin-Yang family and the great Qin Empire was extremely close. After the empire was built, Tai, the leader of the Yin-Yang family, rarely left the Xuanji Pavilion. On weekdays, the affairs of the Yin-Yang family, big and small, are all handled by the moon god. At this moment, Tai personally walked out of the Xuanji Pavilion and arrived at the land of Lishan. I think it's also for this matter of heaven and humanity. Although Tai's aura was extremely strong, he led his subordinates to arrive. At the first moment, a Taoist ceremony was performed towards the first emperor. After all, under Pu Tian, there is nothing but royal soil. Leading the land by the shore, none other than kings and ministers. Even if Tai is independent from the world, he still needs to lower his noble head in front of Zulong. Emperor Shi looked at Tai's face, which was adorned with a golden mask. With a slight movement in his eyes, he spoke. Tai, your movements of the Yin-Yang family are quite fast. I have just arrived at the land of Mount Li, and you have already led your experts to come. Could it be that Wang Jian has already sealed off the entire Lishan area? I'm afraid you, Tai, have already taken the lead and entered the underground palace that day. Emperor Shi's words may be light. But like a gust of light wind wrapped around a sharp blade, it made all the experts of the Yin-Yang family who heard this bear the heavy imperial power. The star moon god's apricot blossom eyes revealed a hint of fear in an instant. Although Tai remained motionless like a mountain, some sweat oozed from the forehead covered by the golden mask. Now that the world is unified, no one can bear the majesty of the first emperor. Tai Xin knew that Emperor Shi was blaming the Yin-Yang family for coming here without authorization, and quickly spoke up to explain. Your Majesty, it is not the Yin-Yang family's method of observing heaven and humanity. But it's because my Yin-Yang family has been passed down from heaven and earth, that's why I led the experts of the Yin-Yang family to come here to worship the immortal faces of heaven and earth. As soon as Tai said these words, Emperor Shi's face fell silent, and his eyes and pupils shrank slightly. Emperor Shi never expected that the Yin-Yang family still had a connection with heaven and humanity. Previously, although the Yin-Yang family had close ties with the great Qin, the first emperor also believed that the Yin-Yang family, like other schools of thought, was created by sages. I never imagined that it would be related to the mysterious and unpredictable celestial beings in legends. The civil and military officials were filled with a look of shock, and the words of Tai echoed in their ears like thunder. For them, heaven and humanity are mythical beings. I have never considered that in today's era, there are still people who can be related to the gods and humans in mythology. At this moment, all the civil and military officials are staring at Tai with wide-eyed eyes. After a tumultuous moment in his heart, Emperor Shi stared at Tai and slowly spoke. Oh. I didn't expect that your Yin-Yang family has such a connection with heaven and humanity. So, can your Yin-Yang family still be considered as the descendants of heaven and humanity? It concerns both heaven and humanity, and the curiosity of the first emperor has been aroused. After frowning and pondering for a moment, he said again. Your Yin-Yang family seems to have split from the Taoist sect. So, both Tianzong and Renzong can be considered as descendants of Tianren. So, what about some other forces within the 100 schools of thought? What kind of connection do they have with heaven and humanity? At the end, the first emperor's gaze slowly revealed a sharp light. The 100 schools of thought are not one piece, and each school of thought has its own position. Some of them, like the Yin-Yang family, were already tied to the giant ship of the Qin. But there are also those who, both openly and secretly, oppose the great Qin Empire. Even harboring the remnants of the Six Kingdoms, constantly preparing to overthrow the newly established Qin Empire. Tai had already felt a hint of iron and blood from the first emperor. Knowing the reality of heaven and humanity has already touched the sensitive nerves of Emperor Shi. Hurriedly continued, I'm not too sure about the other few. But the founder of our Taoist sect was indeed one of the 12 disciples of heaven and man back then. Afterwards, Taoism was divided into 3 parts. My Yin-Yang family, Tianzong, and Renzong can all be considered as descendants of Tianren. This sentence has just come to an end. All civil and military officials take a deep breath. Due to conflicting beliefs, Taoism was eventually divided into 3 lineages. The Yin-Yang family, the heavenly family, and the human family. This period of history is well known to everyone. No one could have imagined that the one who founded the Taoist sect was actually one of the disciples of the heavenly man back then. Just one disciple has created a Taoist sect that has been passed down for nearly 1,000 years. How will the other 11 disciples be stunningly talented? In an instant, all the civil and military officials felt a sense of shock in their hearts. The first emperor's eyes also flickered, and it was only then that he realized that the footprints of heaven and humanity had already spread throughout this world. What shocked the first emperor even more was that celestial being, surprisingly, has lived from ancient times when giant beasts roamed freely to modern times. What profound marks did that celestial being leave in the history of the entire human race? At this moment, Emperor Shi looked up at the night sky for the first time at the age of a child. A sense of awe towards the greatness of the unknown slowly permeates in my heart. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Heavenly, human, holy objects, and divine punishments. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 7 Sacred Objects of Heaven and Man. Divine Punishment. Lishan, in front of the heavenly and earthly palace. Everyone was shocked by Tai's statement about the history of heaven and humanity. Emperor Shi felt deeply moved by the long life of heaven and humanity, and his heart became increasingly certain that in the hanging coffin of the human underground palace that day, it was very likely that heaven and humanity were sleeping in it. An excited emotion spread throughout the body with the flow of blood. Looking at the entrance of the heavenly and earthly palace guarded by heavy troops, the first emperor could no longer suppress his searching emotions in his heart. With a big wave of his hand, he shook his voice and said, "Let's go. Gentlemen, join me in the underground palace. Meet the Taoist field left by heaven and humanity." After speaking, Wang Jian took the lead in opening the way, and the first emperor strode forward, followed by civil and military officials behind him. There are also many experts from the Yin-Yang family accompanying him. This time, with the addition of the Yin-Yang family, which has a connection with heaven and humanity, it is likely to have a more intuitive effect on uncovering the mysterious veil of heaven and humanity. When the first emperor, with stirring emotions, stepped into the entrance of the heavenly and earthly palace. Just looking up at the first glance, the first emperor was shocked by the scenery in front of him. Before entering the underground palace, there was a small valley above it when viewed from outside. But once you step into it, you will suddenly realize how magnificent the underground palace built by hollowing out the entire mountain is. The first emperor's eyes widened with an incredulous expression as he slowly walked forward. In his view, the interior of the heavenly and earthly palace in front of him seemed to have forcefully inserted the entire Xianyang imperial palace into the Lishan mountains. In the vast scene, there are towering towers, like towering peaks. No. Compared to the architecture in front of us, the Xianyang palace, which was crafted by skilled craftsmen from all over the world, instantly appears somewhat crude. The imperial palace in front of us seems to be meticulously carved by humans in every detail. Although surprised by the palace in front of me, it is more like a hazy ink painting in the distance. Even if it were directly in front of everyone, it would make everyone intoxicated and unable to believe the scenery in front of them. After entering the heavenly and earthly palace, there was no more sound from the team around Emperor Shi. Whether it was the first emperor himself, the leader of the Yin-Yang family Tai, or the knowledgeable Prime Minister Li Si, they were all amazed by the sight of the heavenly emperor palace in front of them, leaving them speechless. After continuing to walk forward, Emperor Shi suddenly discovered a problem. This heavenly and earthly palace was originally built by hollowing out the mountain, but when they arrived here, they did not feel any sense of darkness. Emperor Shi suppressed his doubts and looked up at the sky above the heavenly and earthly palace. In the next moment, Emperor Shi stood still in his place. He only then knew the origin of the light in the entire heavenly and earthly palace. Above the human underground palace on this day, there is actually a dome. The rocks that were supposed to be gray-black forests were adorned with countless glowing stones. It is the tiny fluorescence emitted that illuminates the vast heavenly and earthly palaces with great brightness and transparency. The countless fluorescent round stones that make up for it were like a celestial being capturing a bay of starry sky with great supernatural powers. The civil and military ministers also discovered the dome hanging high above their heads with the movements of the first emperor. Every person who enters the heavenly and earthly palace for the first time cannot help but feel a sense of piety. Miracle. This is definitely a miracle. Your Majesty. On this day, people indeed have the power to conquer the heavens. Prime Minister Li Si, unable to suppress his excited emotions, said to Emperor Shi. But at this moment, Tai's gaze at the dome became increasingly complex. Those eyes, which were originally meant to encompass the universe, went from shock to confusion, and finally to shock. Because Tai discovered that the glowing round stones on the dome were not randomly arranged. Among them, there is a mysterious and unpredictable formation hidden. Just a preliminary speculation, Tai actually felt that his mind seemed to be being sucked away by that dome. Suddenly, a thin layer of sweat sprouted from behind. As the leader of the Yin-Yang family, Tai's strength has reached the pinnacle of the world. Surprisingly, even the formation in the dome dare not be speculated upon. The divine powers of heaven and humanity are already beyond the limits of human imagination. Tai quickly spoke out to everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a mysterious formation hidden inside the dome above us. Don't try to take a closer look, otherwise you may be sucked away. When everyone heard Tai's words, they no longer dared to stare at the dome above their heads. With Wang Jian's guidance, everyone continued to move forward in the heavenly and earthly palace. Soon, we arrived at the place with murals. The grandeur of murals transcends everyone's imagination. It's like a painting as tall as 10 people, spread out in this heavenly and earthly palace. It stretches all the way to the depths of the underground palace, like a river. Emperor Shi brought everyone to the beginning of the mural and looked inside at the engraved content through the fluorescence. The first thing that catches the eye is a scorching immortal figure, driving many tall beasts to hunt around. Seeing such scenes, everyone thought of the content in the Book of Heaven, Man, and Immortals. Li Si's eyes were filled with emotion, murmuring, "Is this the Tyrannosaurus rex that humans speak of? This dragon species is quite different from what I had previously thought. But its ferocity is also terrifying enough." Even observing murals is due to the exquisite craftsmanship of the sculptors. Everyone can feel a wild aura emanating from the Tyrannosaurus rex. Although it is not the imagined state of a divine dragon, this fierce beast atmosphere makes people feel even more terrifying. That incredibly large dragon head is afraid that it can swallow several armored soldiers in just one bite. The first emperor's eyes were even more stunned. He could think of what kind of power would erupt if the Tyrannosaurus rex carved in the mural had a few heads on the battlefield. That huge figure will be a nightmare in the hearts of all warriors. Watching the scene of humans driving Tyrannosaurus rex at will, Emperor Shi's reverence for humans became increasingly profound. Moving forward. There are also scenes of celestial beings using other forms of giant beasts to move mountains and fill the sea. There is a huge creature with 4 legs on the ground and a neck hanging high, carrying stones. There is another monster with a triangular head, fiercely charging towards the sturdy mountain. Heaven and man, he. Surprisingly, they are driving these terrifying beasts to become commoners and carry out the great task of relocating mountains and filling the sea. Originally a towering mountain, it was forcefully flattened by those giant beasts with triangular heads. Subsequently, the shattered stones were transported by various mammals to larger dragons and transported to other places. All sorts of incredible scenes, although everyone has heard of them once in the immortal books left by heaven and humanity. But seeing this mural at this moment, I still feel a shock to my mind. At this moment, Wang Jian, who had not spoken, touched his head and said, "Well, Your Majesty, if we go further ahead, we'll end up with the incomprehensible content that I'm going to say." Wang Jian's words immediately caught everyone's attention. Everyone hurriedly continued to watch. Apart from some scenes of celestial beings living in the Jurassic period, further ahead, the content of the mural seems to have undergone a significant transformation. In the picture, it seems that various round stick-shaped weapons appear. Moreover, on the side of these strange weapons, there are ancient seal script inscriptions. Words such as Chen Mu cannon and Suefa fire gun. Everyone immediately understood. This. Surprisingly, this is a weapon crafted by heaven and man with the divine power of Weian. Heavenly and divine weapons. Those round stick-shaped weapons don't seem to be used to strike enemies. But it seems that flames can burst out from the end. With a single blow, it can shatter the rock. Everyone is refreshed by the round stick-shaped weapons in the murals, refreshing their inner understanding. What's even more incredible is the murals from now on. I saw a mural engraved with the words divine punishment. Ying. In the picture, at the position where the giant beast was flattened, a 3-person tall cylinder stands tall. At the end, the cylinder became pointed again. Everyone was puzzled as to what the divine punishment Ingwu was. When we come to the next mural, we will see the cylinder with a long flame tail, cutting through the sky. Surprisingly, it rises arrogantly, just like the star of the fireflies recorded in history. After soaring straight into the 9 heavens, with unparalleled strength, it smashed fiercely towards the earth. When the divine punishment the flicker hit the ground, all the murals in sight were a pale expanse of air. Everyone doesn't know what the large blank space represents. But obviously, this blank space has been color processed, it's definitely not missing anything. But rather, the person sculpting this mural is using this blank space to express the power of divine punishment. Flickering. In an instant. Everyone's heart is filled with a great terror. The world is a vast expanse of white. Is this the power of the stars released by heaven and earth? Is the power of this mysterious weapon enough to destroy this mortal world? Everyone dared not continue to think. The great terror that arose in their hearts had already made their breathing a bit rapid. Just as everyone was still holding their breath and digesting the great terror in their hearts. Suddenly, a soldier reported loudly, "Your Majesty, we have made a great discovery. In the depths of the heavenly and earthly palace, it seems that a divine artifact has been discovered. This object is as strong as gold and iron, seamlessly integrated, as if it were a weapon of heaven and humanity. Brothers, the new book sets sail, seeking monthly tickets and various data support. The data meets the standards and explodes wildly, with sufficient manuscript storage." End of this chapter. Chapter 8. The Law of Longevity. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. The Law of Longevity. Upon hearing these words, Emperor Shi and others were immediately awakened by the report. After the inner terror was dispelled, immediately, a huge surprise emerged. Even the first emperor who ruled over the entire land of China, his breathing became a bit rapid at this moment, and his eyes lit up. If these terrifying weapons of heaven and humanity fall into the hands of others, it is naturally a great terror. But what if it were in the hands of the Qin Empire? It will be a divine weapon capable of suppressing the country. The top martial arts expert of the Tai E class is also in tremendous shock at this moment. Even if they cultivate themselves enough to soar, when it comes to the celestial and human weapons on the murals that are capable of destroying heaven and earth. How are these martial arts masters different from ants? And the civil and military officials, at this moment, even their faces were flushed with excitement. If there were still heavenly and human weapons hidden in the heavenly and earthly palace, even the weakest one in the murals. As long as it is in the hands of the empire, it is enough to intimidate all sides. Always maintain national fortune. Emperor Shi turned around with an uplifted expression and gazed at the armored soldier who came to report, saying solemnly, "Lead the way. I want to see the advantages of heaven and man's weapons." The armored soldier was stared at by the sharp eyes of the first emperor, and immediately felt a surge of imperial majesty rushing towards him. He quickly respectfully said, "Here." Subsequently, under the guidance of Jia Shi, Emperor Shi led the crowd towards the corner of the heavenly and earthly palace where they discovered the weapons of heaven and humanity. Along the way, everyone shuttled through various magnificent scenery. It seems like I have completely stepped into a picture, feeling the grandeur of the heavenly and earthly palace. I am increasingly looking forward to the celestial and human weapons that are about to fall in front of me. Arriving at a place guarded by heavy troops. What fell in front of the first emperor was the peculiar round stick-shaped weapon carved in the murals. Some people have sturdy arms and a curved wooden handle at the head. There is also a huge metal iron pipe that is thick and thin enough for an adult's waist, and beneath that massive body, there are 2 wooden wheels carrying it. Although it is already covered with mottled rust. But everyone still feels a piercing sharpness on these weapons. Emperor Shi walked out at a pace and hurriedly arrived before these heavenly and human weapons. His eyes widened to the fullest, carefully examining the complete picture of these heavenly and human weapons in front of him. Extending his hand to touch these terrifying weapons, Emperor Shi's heart was filled with a sense of shock. I just learned about these terrifying weapons from the murals of heaven and man. At this moment, seeing these weapons in front of him, how could the first emperor not be excited? Although none of these heavenly and human weapons seem to have the ability to destroy the heavens and earth with a single blow, unleashing a vast blank mural of a great killing weapon. But the first emperor was already satisfied enough. If there were really that heavenly and human weapon that could destroy the world here, the first emperor might not dare to approach it. After feeling the texture of these heavenly and human weapons, Emperor Shi then picked out a seemingly smallest caliber heavenly and human weapon from all the heavenly and human weapons. With his right hand cautiously supporting the rusty iron pipe, and his left hand grasping the curved wooden support, Emperor Shi brought up this unnamed heavenly and human divine weapon before his eyes and carefully examined the clues. Fortunately, Emperor Shi had also practiced horseback riding and archery diligently in his time. Even though he was quite old, his body was still relatively strong. Looking at the mysterious divine weapons in front of him, the first emperor seemed to be looking at the rarest treasure in the world. Although the first emperor did not know how to use this heavenly and human weapon. But from the content depicted in the murals, the first emperor had a deep understanding of the power of the weapon, which was not as heavy as a hammer, in the hands of heaven and man. Even if separated by 100 zhang, both heaven and earth can use this weapon in front of them to smash rocks. In the eyes of the first emperor, such lethality was almost like a flying sword in mythology. There is a shocking feeling of taking the enemy's head from 1,000 miles away. Seeing Emperor Shi pick up the weapons of heaven and man and carefully grasp them in close proximity, Wang Jian and Li Si, the important officials of the Great Qin, only felt a tightness in their hearts. Wang Jian took a step forward and spoke out. Your Majesty, please take care of your health. Heavenly and human weapons have terrifying power, and we haven't figured out how to use them yet. If there is an accident with celestial and human weapons, then... Wang Jian didn't say the rest, but from his tense expression, it was evident how worried he was. Li Si also took a step forward and advised. Your Majesty, the weapons of heaven and man have been placed here for quite some time now. I don't know if the various mechanisms inside it can be used normally. These heavenly and human weapons are extremely dangerous now. Your Majesty, please prioritize your own safety. Li Si's face was full of bitterness, indicating that he was extremely worried about the behavior of the first emperor carrying heavenly and human weapons. At the beginning of the establishment of the Great Qin Empire, the fate of the country and the country all depend on the individual Zulong. On this day, the emergence of human weapons was originally the east wind of the prosperity of the Great Qin state. If there were any accidents due to the heavenly and human weapons caused by the ancestral dragon here, then the joy would be great. The first emperor, upon hearing the admonitions of two important officials, smiled and cursed with a smile on his face. I'm not old yet. I used to be able to wield the Qin sword and sweep the 6 harmonies, but today I am also able to wield heavenly and human weapons. Furthermore, I am the emperor of the divine realm, and heaven and humanity will naturally bless me. Although he said so, the first emperor was still cautious and placed the weapons of heaven and man in their original positions. Just as the first emperor led everyone in civil and military affairs to observe these heavenly and human weapons, Tai looked around. Because the place where heavenly and human weapons are stored here also has a mural. In this mural, there is no other content, only the figures of heaven and humanity. I saw heaven and man stretching their bodies in the mural, performing a complete set of movements. Just a few ordinary body movements, it's like being struck by lightning. Even the celestial weapons were placed in front, and Tai was unwilling to observe. Looking carefully at this mural, the face covered by Tai's golden mask was already shocked. Even the pair of eyes exposed were full of incomprehension. The more I observed the actions of heaven and man in the mural, the Taoist knowledge that Tai Yi learned throughout his life was fully mobilized. Just like what I learned before, encountering the source. In Tai Yi's mind, there seemed to be a constant repetition of the strange phenomena of all things growing and repeating. In an instant, I understand too much. This seemingly ordinary mural actually contains the true teachings passed down by heaven and humanity. Too many times, unable to suppress the shock in his heart, he shouted to the first emperor who was still observing the weapons of heaven and man, saying, "Your Majesty! Here! It seems that there is a way for heaven and man to live forever." End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Learning the Art of Longevity. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Learning the Art of Longevity. Tai Yi's words come out immediately. This is the first emperor who led his courtiers to discuss the quality of weapons and weapons from heaven and humanity. Immediately widened his eyes and suddenly looked at Tai Yi. At this moment, the first emperor's eyes were as sharp as iron. If the first emperor valued anything the most, it would naturally be his lifelong longing for immortality. At this moment, upon hearing Tai Yi's discovery of the law of longevity, all the attention of Emperor Shi was diverted. Where is the law of longevity? Where is the law of immortality left by heaven and man? At this moment, the first emperor seemed like a fierce tiger, strode towards Tai Yi. All the civil and military officials are not observing the weapons of the skyscraper. Judu followed behind the first emperor and came to Tai Yi. Facing the questioning gaze of Emperor Shi, Tai Yi pointed to the mural on the wall and said, "Your Majesty, please take a look. What is carved on this mural is that the heavens and humans are personally demonstrating the method of immortality." Following the direction pointed by Tai Yi, everyone focused their attention on the murals on the surrounding walls. Due to the discovery of heavenly and human weapons earlier, it was too intimidating. So, neither the first emperor or the various civil and military ministers have devoted their hearts and minds to the murals. Moreover, on that mural, there are only some ordinary movements. When everyone entered this place, they did not pay close attention to the content of the mural. At this moment, upon hearing what Tai Yi had said, these murals were actually demonstrations of the law of immortality by heaven and humanity. Everyone just needs to stare bigger than a cow's eyes, staring at the mural with every move made by the heavens and humans. Not even a single detail will be missed. These actions, although soft and simple, are known to be the law of longevity for heaven and humanity. Everyone feels that these ordinary actions seem to contain a profound and minimalist meaning. I only believe that these seemingly ordinary actions of heaven and humanity are definitely accompanied by celestial anomalies behind them. It is also possible for countless divine thunder to listen to its commands, or for one to step on the strong wind of the 9 heavens. However, in order to express the true meaning of the law of immortality, the heavens and humans did not carve all those various visions into this mural. At this moment, the first emperor led the officials of the great Qin Empire, spreading his thoughts. Thinking back thousands of years, when the heavens and humans demonstrated this method of immortality, they created various extraordinary phenomena. Wang Jian's expression was excited and he sighed. Heaven and humanity are indeed heaven and humanity, and the method of immortality left behind is so simple. Thinking of the divine punishment. Yin Wu, created by heaven and man, a single blow is enough to destroy the power of the human world. I believe that thousands of years ago, when humans demonstrated this method of immortality, it was also shrouded in a sky full of rosy rays, and all things in heaven and earth were bowing down. Wang Jian's words were recognized by everyone in the room. The weapons created by heaven and man can evoke a scene of heavenly punishment and destruction. The method that people used that day must have been earth-shattering, capable of making Cangming crack. At this moment, Li Si discovered 5 ancient seal script fonts in the corners of this series of murals. Everyone, hurry up. The demonstration of the method of immortality by heaven and man, and there are also taboos. Everyone looked in the direction indicated by Lishan. Sure enough, at the end of this set of carving of the method of immortality, heaven and earth left behind a named taboo for this method of immortality. Emperor Shi looked at the 5 fonts and calmly recited. Tai Chi 13 styles. This method of longevity, the named taboo is indeed powerful. I can see from this taboo that this method is definitely created by the study of heaven and man's lifelong development. The first emperor was full of excitement, his eyes shining brightly. The power of the method demonstrated by heaven and earth goes without saying. However, the first emperor's greatest concern was naturally longevity. So he asked Tai in confusion. Tai, if we follow these actions of heaven and man, can we really reach the realm of immortality? When the heavenly and earthly palace was not yet alive, the first emperor pursued immortality through the method of elixirs. Complete oneself with external things. In the view of Emperor Shi, if one really wanted to achieve immortality, the only way was to refine the elixir of immortality. This is also an inherent concept of this era. So, even if the heavens and humans inscribe great teachings such as the 13 forms of Tai Chi here, the first emperor still had some worries, fearing that even if he practiced this method, he would not be able to reach the realm of immortality. As the ancestral dragon that governs the divine realm, what is the use of the first emperor's strength alone? Only by increasing one's own longevity can the foundation of the Qin Empire extend for thousands of years. Upon hearing this, Tai explained. Your Majesty is unaware of this. The reason why my yin-yang family pursues the path of longevity is all because it is recorded in ancient books. Danyao and the like can certainly prolong life, but they are ultimately external substances. The only way to truly live a long life is to take oneself as a container, adopt the essence of heaven and earth, and supplement one's own roots. Only by reaching a body without leakage can we truly rise and fall together with the sun and moon. The founder of my yin-yang family is one of the 12 disciples under the constellation of Tianren. I think if we want to embark on the path of immortality, the law left by heaven and humanity before us is the east wind. Upon hearing these words, the first emperor's heart was like an endless sea, stirring up earth-shattering waves. The theory of longevity described by Tai is completely different from the path he took earlier. In the absence of the method of immortality and self-cultivation, the first emperor could only order the alchemists led by Su Fu to collect precious medicines from all over the world, attempting to refine great medicines that could sustain life. At this moment, as Tai said, the true path of immortality seems to be using oneself as a great medicine, absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth for irrigation. Emperor Shi carefully pondered, his gaze slowly shifting from doubt to shock, and then from shock to transparency. Considering that the yin-yang family can also be considered as the offspring of heaven and humanity, Emperor Shi increasingly believed that the theory proposed by Tai was the true path to longevity. Since we are going on the path of longevity, the method of longevity in front of us is essential. In an instant, 2 sharp rays of light bloomed in the eyes of Emperor Shi. Gentlemen, please exit this room first. Wang Jian. You lead the black-armored soldiers at the entrance of the imperial palace and set up tight defenses. If anyone dares to approach the heavenly and earthly palace, they will be shot to death. Make sure not even a mosquito flies in. With 2 orders, the first emperor burst out with the power of an ancestral dragon. The law of immortality is right in front of us, and Emperor Shi will never allow anyone to reveal it. Upon hearing the order of the first emperor, Wang Jian immediately exclaimed with a resounding voice, "Respect the order of my emperor." The officials of the Great Qin also understood the possessive desire of the first emperor towards the law of immortality. The officials who were just observing the 13 styles of Tai Chi dare not turn their attention to the murals anymore. I am afraid that my actions may cause misunderstandings from the first emperor. Only Prime Minister Lishan and Tai were left here. The rest of the people withdrew from the heavenly and earthly palace in sequence. Are there any brothers watching? Requesting monthly pass support, little brother. Thank you very much. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Heaven and Man Eat Dragons. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Heaven and Man Eat Dragons. In the heavenly and earthly palaces, wait until all the officials have retreated. Only then did Emperor Shi concentrate his mind entirely on the murals. Looking at the heavens and humans, every incredibly simple action. Emperor Shi sighed in unison. The divine powers of heaven and man are truly unimaginable to future generations. The ancient and modern treasure technique of Xiang Chongqing method is so easy to understand. Following the movements of heaven and man depicted in the mural, Emperor Shi attempted to connect them. In his youth, Emperor Shi also practiced martial arts. At this moment, imitating the 13 forms of Tai Chi practice is naturally not at all difficult for the first emperor. Just a shallow attempt, the first few actions. The first emperor felt his entire body's chi and blood being mobilized. It's like a spring breeze blowing into my body. 4 limbs and 100 bones, each flesh and blood slowly emerged with vitality. I feel a refreshing sensation all over my body. Emperor Shi immediately understood that the path of immortality mentioned by Tai had something to do with it. The law left by humans on this day is indeed the east wind on the path of immortality. Take your own body as a precious medicine, and heaven and earth as a cauldron. He Yingzheng is about to embark on the path of immortality through the 13 Tai Chi styles in front of him. From now on, live the same life as the sun and moon. In the eyes of Emperor Shi, a strong confidence burst forth. Looking at Tai beside him, he slowly said. Tai, your yin-yang family is both a descendant of heaven and humanity. You can join me in comprehending this 13 forms of Tai Chi. As soon as these words fell, a surprising light flashed in Tai Yi's golden eyes. Hurry up and edit. So, thank you very much, Your Majesty. The surprise of Tai is not fake. If someone secretly cultivates the heavenly and human treasure art on the mural without the consent of Emperor Shi's coveting of Chongqing, I'm afraid that once discovered, I will face the encirclement and suppression of the entire Qin Empire. In today's world of unity, if the first emperor insists on killing one person, even if he hides at the ends of the earth, he may still be unable to escape the anger of the ancestral dragon. Therefore, upon hearing the words of Emperor Shi at this moment, even Tai Yi, who was among the top martial artists in the world, was pleasantly surprised. Emperor Shi nodded secretly as he looked at Tai Yi's respectful posture. He asked Tai Yi to also practice this heavenly treasure technique. This is the original intention of the true Sui dynasty, which is to explore the 13 forms of Tai Chi through its profound Taoist heritage. Tai is a book about heaven and humanity. Practicing the heavenly and human treasure technique from the other person's perspective may lead to other insights. And leaving Li here is purely out of trust in him. Emperor Shi and Li Si, although they were monarchs and subjects, were also friends. Taking the other party on the path of immortality, Emperor Shi still has the courage. After all, the great Qin Empire also needed capable officials like Li Si to govern. The first emperor not only wanted to live the same life as the sun and moon, but also wanted the great Qin Empire to survive forever. On this day, the first emperor obtained the eternal treasure technique in the heavenly and earthly palace. Under the stirring mood, I came straight to practice all night. With great perseverance and occasional guidance from Tai Yi, Emperor Shi finally integrated these Tai Chi 13 styles into a cohesive whole. Even after staying up all night, Emperor Shi's eyes were still full of vitality. Looking at Li Si with a tired face beside him, Emperor Shi couldn't help but smile and say, "Lise, your body is not as good as mine. With the eternal treasure technique on my side, I stayed up all night and you were so tired. In the future, you should practice this longevity technique more." The great Qin Empire cannot do without you, the Prime Minister. Upon hearing this, Li Si first suppressed the urge to yawn. He gritted his teeth again, dispelling the drowsiness in his heart, and respectfully said. After all, Wei Chen is already old. With your Majesty's permission, I was able to practice this precious treasure of immortality. But after all, it's not as effective as your Majesty having the protection of Chinese dragon luck. This effect is still not as good as your Majesty's. However, Wei Chen, we will strive to practice this longevity technique in the future and strive to keep up with your Majesty's footsteps. At this point, Li Si wore black circles under his eyes and came up with another set of Tai Chi 13 styles. The first emperor was interested in the longevity method left by heaven and humanity, and also aroused a strong interest in their past experiences. Arriving at a secluded place in the underground palace, I took out the Heavenly and Immortal Book. After obtaining the Heavenly Immortal Book, Emperor Shi almost regarded it as a symbol of the great fortune of the Qin dynasty. Fearing that there might be unscrupulous individuals who would steal the Book of Heaven, Man, and Immortals, I always carry it close to my body. At this moment, Emperor Shi opened the Book of Heaven, Man, and Immortals and continued to browse the subsequent stories of Heaven and Man. After having dozens of Tyrannosaurus rex as pets, I have tamed some of the various types of dinosaurs on land. With such a huge army of dinosaurs under my command, I naturally cannot waste these coolies. Moreover, it seems that I did not have a formal house during the Jurassic period under my command. The dinosaur army immediately launched the project of relocating mountains and filling the sea. I selected a mountain, hollowed out the entire area, and prepared to make it into an underground palace. Upon seeing this, Emperor Shi immediately understood. The Heavenly Emperor Palace is indeed the mansion left by the Heavenly Man. Emperor Shi carried an excited mood and continued to watch. The project of building an underground palace cannot be completed overnight. In my spare time, I have found other pleasures. After surrendering another group of pterosaurs, I looked up and couldn't help but marvel that although the land is vast, there is no one who is not my pet, but the collection obsession in my heart is always unbearable. One day, something suddenly came to my mind. Since both the earth and the sky have my pet, the endless sea cannot be without it. With this idea in mind, I immediately put it into action. Leading my pet army, I arrived at the seaside with great momentum. Sure enough, there are even more dragon species in this sea. Moreover, due to environmental reasons, the size of dinosaurs in the ocean is even larger than on land. Looking at the 20-zhang long smooth-toothed dragon, my first reaction was actually to eat it. Since the flame in my heart has already ignited, I don't need to suppress it anymore. The first smooth-toothed dragon I encountered became my prey. With honor, I looked at the many dinosaur armies surrounding me, definitely giving these pets a chance to show off. The smooth side-toothed dragon, with a body weighing 300,000 pounds, resembled a destroyer on the sea surface. I ordered the pterosaur to carry stones and carry out air raid tactics, but the air force composed of pterosaurs has an extremely low destructive power when dropped, which may be useful for other dinosaurs. However, it did not cause any damage to the massive body of the smooth-toothed dinosaur. I am not satisfied with the performance of the pterosaur army, but it's okay. It's time for me to take action. The smooth side-toothed dragon, not knowing what it was about to face, was still showing off on the sea surface. Oh, what about a body weighing 300,000 pounds? It's still not my enemy with just one punch. However, the dragon head was smashed and I couldn't eat the steamed fish head anymore, which is still a bit regrettable. When Emperor Shi saw this, he almost startled his chin. With the worldview of Emperor Shi, it is impossible to imagine what a body weighing 300,000 pounds would be like. This is almost the Dragon King of the sea. Is it true that there is such a divine power in heaven and man? Even the Dragon King ate it. At that moment, the first emperor only felt that heaven and man were both powerful and cruel. Emperor Shi looked at Tai, who was still practicing the 13 forms of Tai Chi, and couldn't help but speak. Have you ever heard of a giant beast in the water weighing 300,000 pounds? Upon hearing Emperor Shi's words, Tai stopped moving. Casually speaking. Your Majesty, there is a work from my Yin-Yang family called Leisure Travel. There is a description of a creature called Kuan. There is a fish in the North Sea, named Kuan. Kuan is so big that I don't know if it can travel thousands of miles. This is probably the description left by the founder of my Yin-Yang family when he saw the pets of heaven and humanity. Since the Kuan can be thousands of miles large, its weight naturally far exceeds 300,000 kilograms. Upon hearing Tai's explanation, Emperor Shi took a deep breath. Emperor Shi finally understood that nothing that had any connection with heaven or humanity was simple. Just a pet in the water can be thousands of miles in size. What can be considered when someone eats a dragon king that day? End of this chapter.